Hello, everyone. It's nice to actually finally be here and meet you all. So I've been working with Karina now for I think close to a year to get my course, multiple courses up and going for menopause. So as I said, I'm essentially a menopause coach and trainer. Um, I I might start with a bit of my story, so how I got here, because I think it's really relevant. So my menopause transition started when I was 35. I had absolutely no idea what was going on. My life, my career, everything was taking off. So I'd built a really successful career in construction. Um, I grew up in a family business of construction and went into construction myself professionally. I've got back-to-back master's degrees. I'd been a runner-up for very prestigious recognition of my work in the construction sector. I spent a year traveling with my husband overseas. I'd paid off my house. Basically, everything, if you looked at me from outside, looked amazing. It was like, wow, what's she doing? How can I get there? And then perimenopause hit. And I had never heard the word menopause. I obviously then had never heard of the word perimenopause. And over several years, probably about 3 years, I had experienced over 30 symptoms. And in that time, no one believed me. I kept getting misdiagnosed, offered medication that was inappropriate. As someone that's lived with depression and anxiety my whole life, the go-to thing was, here, have some different antidepressants. But I knew that that wasn't what it was. And the symptoms were not like one symptom here, one symptom there. It was a compounding effect. So just to give you a very brief overview of some of the things I was experiencing, I had a non-stop period for 6 months. I had chronic joint and muscle pain to the point where I was really struggling with my mobility. Heart palpitations, so I cut out sugar and coffee. I then developed ocular migraines, which is where you lose the vision in your eyes. It's not necessarily painful. Hair falling out in clumps, skin changes. As I said, my depression and anxiety worsened. I had extreme rage, very, very strong thoughts of suicide, which was difficult to deal with. Brain fog, and I couldn't remember my own sister's name. So, and when you've got dementia and Alzheimer's in your family, that's terrifying for someone under 40. Zero libido, but that's obviously not surprising when you've got erratic periods and a non-stop period for 6 months. But probably the insomnia was the worst thing. I had insomnia for 5 years, so I stopped drinking alcohol for a period of time, but I had overwhelming fatigue, more depression and more anxiety. And in the end, I saw 15 different specialists to have multiple invasive tests, so many actually that I lost count. And I kept being told that it was stress, that it was burnout. Why are you trying to climb a corporate ladder in a male-dominated industry? Maybe you should think of doing something different. Basically, then I got told as well towards the end of all these tests that we need to rule out bowel cancer. And that was 2 weeks before Christmas, with no opportunity to get into the gastroenterologist until the following year. So that was, terrifying. And then in the end, it was you're in perimenopause. During that time, what happened was I was made redundant twice. I left another role within 6 months, not because I couldn't do the role. It was because I couldn't handle or couldn't manage my symptoms and have an executive role at the same time. I completely withdrew from my family and my social life. I stopped exercising, and I'm someone that moves daily and has always been focused on movement. And anyway, I stopped exercising because of the body pain and just fear of spontaneous bleeding. And I considered leaving my marriage of nearly 30 years. I lost all my confidence. I felt like a complete imposter in my own life. And the sad part about all of this is, having spoken at the Senate inquiry last year into menopause and making 2 submissions, what I've since realised is that my story is actually not unique. My story is very common. Many women don't talk about this. They go through all the things that I've gone through, and we just keep it silenced because we're conditioned to get on with it, minimize what you're experiencing, and just push through. So what I realized through my own experience was that I started to see other women in my life, older women that I've been working with, in a completely different light. And I thought to myself, wow, if this is what I've gone through, what have other women gone through? So that's why I created Mimi Moon Meno, because I thought to myself, we are leaving the workforce at the peak of our earning career, and some women don't come back. Some women do come back, but they come back at a reduced capacity. And my work for the last 2 decades, I work in construction, but it's been focused on the social, affordable and accessible housing space for that 2 decades. And what I came to realise was I'd been working on the wicked problem of older women's homelessness. And I thought to myself, wow, the more I started investigating what was going on with menopause, I realised that menopause and women's homelessness is extremely related. And it comes down to 3 things in my mind, very simply: a change in relationships and is a leading cause of homelessness, and 70% of women will divorce during menopause. The second thing is women have reduced income, lower incomes, reduced income. So it's basically not having enough money to survive. That could be because you've taken time out of the workforce. It could be because you've got low super. You could have been working part-time for a period of time. What I realised was that women are leaving the workforce at their peak. So women aged under the age of 55 are leaving the workforce at a rate of 27%. There's a further 17% of women that take an extended period of time out of the workforce during their menopause transition. And I went to myself, wow, that's another leading cause of homelessness, women not having low income. The last thing is a illness that you weren't expecting and you can't afford, is also another leading cause of homelessness. So I put those things together and I went, wow, this all relates very closely to menopause. Why aren't we doing more to keep women employed? And that's really been my focus for the last just over 12 months since I've created Mimi Moon Meno, is to really focus on keeping women employed and engaged in the workforce. And it comes down to understanding why menopause is a workplace issue. And that is because over 70% of women who are going through menopause are actually in the workforce right now. And we're a growing number of women. So between the age group of 45 to 55. So we need to recognise that in that age group of women, while we don't talk about our menopause symptoms, we actually know that 80% of those women that are employed are going to have a moderate to severe experience of menopause. And so we need to support the women that are going through menopause in the workplace to stay employed. And it's actually not that difficult to keep women employed and engaged in the workforce during their menopause transition. It really does come down to very simple things like reasonable adjustments. So for me personally, if I'd known that I could have asked for a reasonable adjustment of a different starting or finishing time, perhaps I would have been a very different person mentally. I would have engaged with people differently because I would have had an opportunity to sleep. Because trust me, when you've only just got to sleep at 1 or 2 in the morning and you're waking up at 3 and you're awake until 6:30, then you have a half an hour of a very deep sleep and then bing, you've got to get up and start your day all over again. Yeah, I was not an easy person to work with. I have no shame in saying that. But that was my insomnia. I didn't know I could ask for a reasonable adjustment to change my start and finish times. Another thing was with the body pain. I didn't realise that I could ask for breaks to go and stretch or whatever it might look like for you. So for me, my hips were seizing up, amongst other things. So I would be in a boardroom, mostly I'd quite often be the only woman in the room, and I'd have to stand up behind the boardroom chair because I couldn't sit down for extended periods of time. So, maybe I could have asked for, instead of having sit-down meetings in a boardroom that's, not temperature adjusted to my needs, perhaps I could have asked for an alternative place to have a meeting, but I didn't feel that I could do that. But the thing is, as well, with women, we're not going to ask for those reasonable adjustments if we don't feel comfortable to talk about menopause in the workplace. And it really does come down to raising awareness and normalising the conversation. So again, in my experience, working in predominantly male-dominated places, industry, I do work with other women. I tried to speak with other older women in my workplaces and I was shut down. When I said, I think I'm going through perimenopause, I distinctly remember one of my older female colleagues who was highly respected and who I looked up to telling me to shut up. Don't mention it. What are you talking about? Don't tell everyone what you're going through. How are they going to look at me? So it's those sort of attitudes and misunderstandings that every woman's experience is different. Just because you're having hot flushes doesn't mean I'm going to. Just because you're having a 6-month period doesn't mean I'm going to. But being able to talk openly about the things that we are experiencing, normalising the conversation so that you can get what you need to stay employed and be productive, I think is really important. And in a workplace setting, I bring it down to my mantra of movement, mindset, modify. That's the mantra that I use in my one-on-one coaching. So from a personal perspective, movement, mindset, modify means moving every day, whatever that looks like for you. If you can only do it for 5 minutes, do it for 5 minutes. If it's chair yoga, if it's a walk around the block, great. But if you can do more than that, do more than that. It then feeds into helping with your mindset and staying positive. And modify comes down to modifying the things that are no longer serving you in your life so that you can have what I call a positively charged experience of menopause. That's the personal side of things. In the workplace, I talk about it from movement as shifting the culture, breaking the silence, talking about menopause openly at work and what your experience is so that other people can openly speak with you about theirs, and it normalises what people are going through. Because menopause is a normal stage of life for every woman that has ovaries. It's no different to puberty. It's just the other end of it, right? I say to use International Women's Day or Are You OK Day or World Menopause Day to talk about menopause. Because the reality is, I'm very happy to talk about my experience of depression and anxiety. The reality is 43% of women right now in Australia, menopause or otherwise, are experiencing a mental health condition. And we have the highest rates of suicide in Australia of women going through perimenopause. So Are You OK Day is a perfect opportunity to highlight not only mental health, but menopause as impacting your mental health. I say to run guided lunchtime workshops. So I do a 45-minute lunch and learn, which really highly just looks at what is menopause, what are the symptoms, what might you be experiencing in the workplace, and how can you take action to get what you need and be supported. Really think about providing links to websites, podcasts, books, whatever it is. On my website, I have a range of resources that I can point people towards and really include men. Like, we've got to shift the culture of men don't want to know about menopause, because quite frankly, every single man that I speak to really wants to know about it. They want to know what's going on with their wives. They want to know what's going on with their colleagues. and if they want to know just generally what's happening with the women in their lives. So I find that men are very open to speak about menopause if you're open to speak about it with them. So that's the first thing, shift culture. Mindset, you've really got to challenge the stigmas and the stereotypes, because it's easy to just assume that someone's moody or, oh, she's a lot. And we get that a fair bit. Why don't you smile more? Have you tried smiling more? And let me tell you, when you've got breathtaking pelvic pain, you can't smile. It's just that simple. If I hear one more time, why don't you try breath work and go and do a bit of yoga? It's like, actually, these hormonal changes, well, that will help. It's more to it than that. So we've really got to challenge all the stigmas. And I think probably the biggest stigma, and the thing that I struggled with the most, is that menopause happens to older women. No, I was 35, and the data and research clearly shows that it's happening to more and more women in that age group. And there's a whole range of reasons why menopause starts early. It could be a cancer diagnosis. It could be that you've had early childhood adversity. It could be actually sexual trauma. That, there's all these hidden things that people don't talk about, genetics. And it's like, so making an assumption that it's something that happens to older women, and that won't happen to me until I'm in my late 40s. I literally got told that recently at a conference I was speaking at. I was like, I was 35. So don't make assumptions that won't happen to you, or it's not happening to someone in your workplace. With the mindset and challenging stigmas and stereotypes in the workplace, you need to train leaders to recognise what's going on and respond supportively. We need to basically normalise the fact that menopause is a natural stage of life for every woman. We need to signal that the organisation supports women through this process, and that we're not going to just let our older, experienced staff who are experiencing menopause leave and not support them, or resign them out, push them out of the organisation because they've become difficult, because we don't know how to support them. Let's support them. Let's see what they need, offer the reasonable adjustments, make sure that they're intentional and inclusive, but at the same time that they're tailored for every unique experience. And when I say intentionally and inclusive, I think it's really important to draw on that point, because flexibility benefits everyone. So, there are dads that need time to go and pick up their kids or take someone to an appointment, just as much as a menopausal woman might need an adjusted start or finish time. So it's about being intentional in your language and making sure that those things are inclusive for everyone to access. And then the last thing is around the modify, and that really means creating systems for support. So including menopause in your diversity, equity and inclusion policies, actually putting the words perimenopause and menopause in those policies so that everyone can see them. Mentioning and bringing menopause into your health and wellbeing policies, and again, actually saying those words. Bring it into your flexible working arrangements, your OC health and safety guidelines, and your EAP. Make sure your EAP is versed in menopause. And then really think about co-designing and communicating a menopause-aware policy. Now, I say when I'm speaking to everyone that the menopause policy should be the last step, because there's plenty of places you can put menopause before you go to a big policy that's standalone and only talks to menopause. I think being intentional and inclusive and looking at where you can slot it in to other things is just as beneficial as having a standalone policy. But if your organisation makes the decision that that's where you want to go, great. But I think you can put it through an audit process. So that's another thing that I can assist with, is how do we audit what you've already got, and where does it look like we can add menopause in? So and then the last thing I suggest in the modify and creating systems of support is really embedding menopause in the information that you provide as part of your onboarding systems. So, you talk about OC health and safety, you're talking about health and wellbeing. Well, menopause is part of that. So you should include it in your onboarding processes for any person that's coming into your workplace, so that they know straight off the bat, as soon as I'm experiencing this, I know there's something there to support me. And then just keep having regular discussions. There could be once a year, you have someone come in and have a conversation about menopause on one of those days or any other day. Or you could just simply say, hey, we're having a discussion about menopause today. Who would like to come and have a conversation? And it's just that there's always studies coming out. There's always new information that you can share. So that's what I do. As I said, I'm a trainer. I'm a coach. I'm living the experience of perimenopause right now. So I'm 11 years in. I'm on 3 types of HRT. I cannot wait for this roller coaster to be over, if I'm being completely honest with everyone. But I'm taking the adversity that I've experienced and really turning it into something that helps other women, helps men, helps organisations to, keep those key staff, to keep getting the job done, and to make sure that women's skills and knowledge go hand in hand with support in the organisations that they're working in. So that's what I do. Yeah, thank you.